Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and more Dead Man's Hand. So we just unboxed the Miners faction, brand new faction for the game here. Excited to dig in. This video, we're actually going to look at what do they actually do. Can we figure out, what really makes these guys tick? Are they going to be effective? What unique things do they bring to the game? So the roster's detailed below. Let's see. Special rules, foreman's orders can only be used in scenes with the foreman and once per game. Sure, makes sense. Now we did have some of that rip from the way that they had it packaged, which is unfortunate, but I think we can figure it out. So foreman's orders, once per game, any single character within 10 centimeters or 4 inches of the foreman may perform a free move or shoot action. That's alright, that's powerful. A lot of times we just play the game kind of like heads up. I know like everything's kind of with like scenes here, but we just like playing like heads up and having different scenarios of our own here, so don't always like do the traditional scenes. But essentially, if you're running the foreman, you have this ability. So anybody within 10 centimeters of the foreman, I don't know if that includes himself. It just says anybody within 10 centimeters of the foreman. I would assume it would have to be somebody else. But anyway, perform a free move or shoot action. So obviously it would be essentially when it's their turn to activate, but nonetheless, you get essentially a fourth action for free for that one moment in the game. Ideally, it's a free shoot, right? But that can, with certain weapons like a pistol, right? You could get maybe a potential fourth shot, or you get that move to get into the right position, get up to point blank for free, and then just start blasting away. There's all kinds of possibilities for that, so we love that. Soot Stained. Any miner character shot at, I'm going to assume while in cover, receives a -1 to any related nerve tests as a bonus, right? That would make sense. So they're just harder to see. So they're going to be, have a little bit more resolve, I would say there. Yeah. So -1 to any related nerve tests. Good stuff. Good stuff. So leadership buff, basically while they're in cover. Union Solidarity. If a miner is taken out of action, all friendly miners within line of sight of the casualty gain +1 hand-to-hand until end of turn. Yeah, these guys are going to be nasty with a lot of their gear and hand-to-hand too. So that's pretty powerful. So just depending on the layout of the board, and who gets killed, if you're close enough and you have several people who haven't activated yet, like let's say you lose one of your figures early in the turn and basically everybody else has line of sight, that can shift your turn to like, hey, instead of maybe shooting at an enemy, maybe we get up there and hand to hand and we have a free bonus. That's already pretty powerful, which we'll see with their stats below and some of their gear. So that is pretty potent. And just depending on like what kind of figure it is, doesn't matter which one. So if you have some of the like cheap ones, like let's say like a panhandler, maybe get them in a spot where they're almost dead and then get them killed early in the turn. And the opponent's gonna have to be careful of who they take out and when, because again that buff is going to mean that a lot of these miners are just going to start charging to get into hand-to-hand combat, so that could be pretty nasty. Anyway, let's jump into the actual list here. You have to have a foreman, pistol and shovel. That's your leaders, right? So the 5 hits like normal, 2 up nerve, +1 to shoot, and +1 to hand built in already. So imagine getting a foreman charging in there off of Union Solidarity, and he's got a +2 hand-to-hand, and that's not even getting into the shovel yet. You have to have 1 to 2 breakers. Interesting, a lot of the lists will say like 2+ or something like that, or 1+. There's different things like that, but here specifically 1 to 2. We don't always see that limitation there, and also 1 to 2 powder monkeys. But the breakers will have pistols and double-handed weapons. We saw a few in the models that we unboxed. Also 5 hits. That's something that we haven't seen in other factions, I think, either. A second character type that has that many hit points, essentially. That's pretty powerful, and only for 3. And they just have a pistol, so no buffs to shoot, no buffs to hand-to-hand, 4 up nerve, so they're not quite as good as the powder monkeys as far as that goes. Usually each faction will have that elite character that's a little bit better at shooting, but these guys are only 3 points, so that's pretty powerful. Yeah, we like that. So that's a whole lot of hit points you can bring. So you might as well, if you can, depending on the size of the game, if you can afford to bring the 2 breakers, now you've got, just between that and the foreman, there's 15 hit points for the opponent to slog through, assuming you don't get taken out by like a high roll or something. Good stuff there. Good stuff. Moving on. 1 to 2 powder monkeys. These are the guys that bring your dynamite. So also, kind of one of the unique shticks of the faction. So you'll want to maybe max out on them. Only 3 points as well. Pistol, dynamite, and blasting caps. 4 HP. 3 up nerve, so you would think that they have a lot of nerve because they're handling dynamite. But these boys have that +1 to shoot built in already. So not the +2 of the normal like ace type character, but yet a second character for only 3 points that has the shooting buff. No other hand-to-hand weapons or anything like that. So that being said, a lot of pistols so far. Nothing as of yet long range. I don't think we're getting long range in this faction. 0 to 4 miners. These are just your average guys, and they're at 2 points a pop here. But pistol, and up to 2 of them can have shotguns. No extra cost. 4 HP as well. This faction is, I think, going to be like the highest HP faction in the whole game as far as how much damage they can take. So just keep that in mind when you're going against these guys. And the shotguns, right? So that's going to more than make up for their lack of shooting buffs, right? The shotgun does its thing. And for 2 points, 8 points for 4 of them, 2 with shotguns, that's a steal. That's 16 HP, or 16 hits to slog through. And still a 4 up nerve. Now our cheap guys in the faction, and these are interesting too. Panhandlers, 1 point, only 3 nerve, or sorry, 3 hits, 6 up nerve. But these guys are easily sacrificial, right? They have the -1 to shoot, -1 to hand, so they're already kind of up against it, right? We ideally don't want them in hand-to-hand unless it's just to tie up an enemy. They have the pistols, so if we get into point blank, that +2 buff will put us in the positive there. But one more way to bring a shotgun for no extra point. So really, if you just have the one panhandler, give them the shotgun. So a 1-point shotgun in the game. You're already going to have the built-in buffs of the shotgun if you get it into the right range. So that's pretty potent stuff there. Really digging that. So what do you guys think about all that compared to some of the other factions in the game? Has so many now. So moving on. I don't want the video to get too long. The shovel. So a shovel is great for digging claims or smashing skulls. Yes, indeed. Any character armed with a shovel inflicts an additional +1 to the score if they win a round of hand-to-hand combat. So pretty good stuff there. So if they're winning, essentially they're winning by a little bit more, which is, and that's for our boss, right, the foreman. Kind of wish that more of the guys would get shovels, right? But it is what it is. But anyway, so the boss is really going to be pretty damn nasty if we get him into combat. If he charges off of the other special abilities, got that +2 to hand-to-hand, and then really shouldn't need as high of a roll to win, and he's always going to win by another 1. So that's good. Now the double-handed weapons. This is the one that we're excited about for sure. Only the toughest miners can swing double-handed tools like pickaxes and sledgehammers. They break bone as easily as rock. Again, yes indeed. Characters charging an opponent armed with a double-handed weapon do not gain the usual +1 for initiating hand-to-hand. Oof. So first time we see sort of like a debuff for charging certain characters in hand-to-hand like that. That's cool. A character armed with a double-handed weapon, though, gains +3 when they initiate, but only for the first round of combat, which, well, let's hope that they wouldn't need too many rounds after that. That's bonkers. So those guys that do have the double-handed weapons, let's go back. So the breakers, right, you're going to want to keep an eye on where they are at all times. And also, yeah, if they charge in on Union Solidarity, if I'm reading it right, that's +4 to hand when they charge in. Yeah, you're not going to survive that. So you should try to take those characters out as soon as possible. That's tough. So this is a nasty close combat faction. Now let's get into the big booms here. The blasting caps and dynamite. Blasting caps can be paired with small dynamite fragments packed in powder bags, or simply hurled as they are to create a crude weapon. Any out-of-action result caused directly by a blasting cap throw is instead treated as under fire and nerve test. However, blasting caps can still take a character out of action through accumulated markers. Cool, so you can't, if you roll high, it's not an auto kill, but it's still going to add damage, and if the damage is enough, then you still take a character out too, but it's basically, an under fire and a nerve test, which is pretty nasty. Now, for dynamite, whether blasting gold from the earth or clearing foes from the street, dynamite solves most problems. Sure does. At any point along a move action, a miner armed with dynamite may declare they've placed a charge on either a short or long fuse, mark the spot where it was set, you got the tokens, and note the chosen fuse length. Each dynamite armed character may only place one charge per turn, so that's actually pretty nasty. It's not like a once per game. They have enough dynamite to do this every turn, which again makes those characters very big targets. You need to watch where they are. Short fuses. At the end of placing miner's current actions, the dynamite explodes. Any character, friend or foe, within 5 centimeters and in line of sight of the charge is a potential target. So 5 centimeters, 2 inches, okay, so not a big radius or big blast zone, but anyway, roll to hit on the shooting table for each affected character, adding +4 to the result. Normal modifiers apply for cover and movement. So it's basically like a sort of a shotgun blast, which makes sense. It's an explosion. So that's the short fuse. So 5 centimeters, right, 2 inches. So not going to cover too much ground, but if you got some opponents packed up and you want to like run at them, and then drop the dynamite, that's pretty nasty. So again, watch for these guys sneaking up on you. Long fuse, though. At the end of the current turn, the dynamite explodes. Any character, friend or foe, within 10 centimeters could be hit, so essentially an 8-inch bubble. Roll to hit on the shooting table for each affected character, adding +6. So it's basically like a shotgun and a double barrel blast on the shotgun, but again, just with the dynamite. So that's cool that they kept it very simple. Could have been convoluted. So no template needed. Again, just measure. So that's pretty nasty stuff there. And here they have it. So blasting cap, you could do twice in a turn. That's crazy. +3 at point blank. Out of action results equals under fire. And nerve test. Point blank is within 4 centimeters. There's obviously no close and long. Dynamite short fuse and dynamite long fuse. So +4 and +6. Easy stuff. Yeah, there's no point in having any range band for dynamite. It's just a explosion. Wow. So that's pretty cool. This is a very neat faction. So they don't have anything long range, so they are going to be incentivized to get up close and personal with you. They have some cover mechanics and things like that. They are going to be absolutely brutal in hand-to-hand combat. The leader that has the shovel, and then the guys with the double-handed weapons are very, very nasty. You got to be careful of taking out any of the characters, because then they have a +1 until end of turn when they charge into hand-to-hand, and again, they're just going to wreck you with average dice rolls, even with those bonuses that they have. So realistically, you're going to see little spurts, I think, in the game, depending on how many get into hand-to-hand in a turn, where you're just suddenly going to lose like 2-3 models just from hand-to-hand combat in just like a quick go like that. Very nasty. Pistols, again, are going to incentivize them to be up close anyway, so for some of those shooting bonuses, they can pack plenty of shotguns, especially that 1-point panhandler shotgun guy. Like, that's, I think, just the way to go, right? Since he's got the penalties, unless you really needed another pistol person, but just take the 1-point shotgun. Seems to me like the way to go for that. But then the guys, and thankfully they're only keeping it at 2. With the powder monkeys, but so you can do blasting caps multiple times in a turn or drop dynamite. So again, they're going to be incentivized to get close to you. They all have plenty of again hits that they can take. So it's the faction with, I think, the most hits across the board. And then on top of it, just the mechanics of the blasting caps and the dynamite, it's going to force you to dislodge and be in just all kinds of different spots. So these guys are going to be up close and really just disrupt your plans. If it's just like a sort of a heads-up scenario. But without further ado, let's go into the cards real quick, because the video is getting long. So the Jack. This is a land of opportunity if you can survive it. Play before an opposing character activates. That character must immediately take a nerve test. If they fail, they lose their turn. So pretty nasty stuff there. So again, speaking of disrupting the enemy's turn, right? Hey, you don't get to go, essentially. And then now we're going to get closer to you, maybe get into combat. Hey, drop some dynamite at your feet. Have fun. Nasty stuff. Well, that's one other thing we should mention, too, with the way that the dynamite works. Essentially, all the other guys that can have shotguns, the dynamite is acting essentially as a shotgun with a blast radius. So really, this is a faction that's going to get close to you, hand to hand, as we talked about, and really, for all intents and purposes, you're just going to get hit with shotgun blasts repeatedly as far as modifiers and stuff go. All right, the Queen. There's gold in them hills, and I aim to find it. Play at the start of the turn before any characters activate. Move one miner a single move action. This movement does not count towards their actions for the coming turn, so basically no penalties on that. Good stuff. So again, they can disrupt your turn so far. They can get themselves in the position. We have that other once per game as well with the Foreman, where you can do a free move or shoot. So really good stuff. And if depending on the board again too, take advantage of the cover because of the soot stained ability. The King. Gold makes men do strange things. Nominate one enemy character and move them one move in any direction. This movement cannot force the character to fall from a building or other place where falling could cause damage or enter hand-to-hand combat. But again, just disrupting your ability to play against them. Moving you either closer to then get into, let's say it's a guy that's already activated. It doesn't specify activated or unactivated. Hey, you're going to get closer, so I don't have to move. Maybe you're already in point blank range for what I want to do. Again, just moving your characters where they're going to get shotgunned, pistol blasted, hand to hand, or have some convenient dynamite. Maybe your characters are spread out a little bit. Hey, they're going to move them closer together. Boom, drop off the dynamite because you've already activated, kind of like a drive-by dynamite stick toss. This is just nasty stuff here. So can't force them into hand-to-hand, but you can be close enough to get into hand-to-hand eventually. And finally, the Ace. This town was built on gold and buried by it. Play to trump any card an opponent uses. After playing this card, immediately draw a card replacement from your deck. Wow, this is bonkers. So instead of just having to worry about countering their card based on the number or the face card value like you normally would, this is just, well, it's literally the trump card to trump all cards. You can counter anything. So obviously, if it's on the board, you're gonna have a high chance activating. But this would be the one just to hold in your hand as much as possible, and then hope to draw it again later in the game or something. So ridiculously powerful cards on top of it. Miners, very strong, very strong. We're getting these guys cleaned up and ready for some priming, and then hopefully get these onto a board soon and get a battle report out for you guys with some of these newer factions. So let us know in the comments what you think about the miners. Are they still fair, or do you think they're a little bit busted? Any weaknesses that you can imagine? Again, we tend to play more heads up, not so much thematic scenario all the time, but nonetheless, they have a lot of power. So hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.